Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very packed full of encounters, some very interesting video clips, and just an all-around awesome upload to share with you guys. And before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Alright, so today's upload is going to consist of some very chilling video clips, some subscriber interviews, or not interviews, some subscriber submissions that are very, very terrifying, and some other encounters that I've stumbled across in my days. Also, some information that may have been kind of skipped over with yesterday's upload, because I didn't see too much mention of it in the comment section, and I thought there'd be a lot more talk about that. Also, with the channel growing, I had seen in about the last month mention of my experience, so I'm going to quick touch on that just so the new folks can really relate if they've had an encounter. I think that if you are going to research these creatures, you should have an encounter. There's a few channels and a few people out there that don't have encounters, and I think that's why sometimes the blinders are on, I guess. Sometimes that's why some people may think that, there's only one way of looking at it, and it's what they've heard because they've not experienced. So let's get into today's upload. Really quickly, I'm going to share my experience. Summer of 1994. I was with 4 of my friends. There was 5 of us. I'll never forget any of the details. We were in a Caprice Classic. My friend Gabe was driving. My best friend Martin, who is Czechoslovakian, and my girlfriend and Martin's girlfriend were with us at the time. We were in a cul-de-sac that was about 6 skeletal houses, meaning that there was the basement, maybe the main floor, with just 2x4 wall, or the bones of the house, the bare bones of the house, minimal, nothing major, not even looking like a house. The cul-de-sac that we were in was kind of a U shape. There was a orangish hued streetlight in the middle of that cul-de-sac on the side of the road where the woods went for miles and miles and miles. Beyond those woods were just miles of trees, underbrush, Hudson River, a abandoned prison and President Grant's summer retreat. So we're hanging out. We're listening to Biohazard, and just because my friends and I were just metalheads. Biohazard was like this, just for that time, a very rare kind of music. So we were just jamming out, having a blast. My friend Martin's girlfriend lived in the cul-de-sac just beyond the one we were in. Now, we had never heard of Dogman. We probably weren't even thinking about Bigfoot. None of us were drinking. None of us were smoking any weed. Probably smoking cigarettes and chewing tobacco. Well, all of a sudden, we hear this very strange but menacing scream with like a growl to the back end of that scream. My friend was in the car. Gabe was in the car on the driver's side, and I never forget looking towards where that street lamp was and seeing eye shine coming from the woods, multiple eye shine. The more I think about how many were out there, I would have to say at least 6. No less than that. At different heights. I remember one of the girls, and I don't remember which one it was, but I remember one of the girls screaming, "Vampires." Vampires were kind of cool back then. I think we had just gotten done watching Lost Boys at Martin's house. And all of a sudden, everyone's in the car. The car is started. Gabe started the car 15 seconds probably after the initial howl, growl, whatever you want to call it. I'm standing at the passenger side front light, staring into the woods, making some weird noises myself. And everyone's like, "Get in the car." I'm not standing there because I'm brave. I was confused, curious. I don't honestly know. There was no compulsion to get into the car. So maybe, and it's a stretch, but maybe there was some sort of telepathic connection saying, "Stay outside, you're going to be our prey." I'm not sure. But we got in the car. They got me in the car. Martin jumped out of the car and pulled me into the car. So Gabe, Martin, me, front seat, girls are in the back. We pull out, we're driving. Now, the cul-de-sac where we were, or the road, runs all the way to the main kind of road in our area called 9N, or there's 9S. And it runs for a very long time through New York State, I believe, to the city. And as we're driving to the end of the cul-de-sac, which was not long, we get to the stop sign. I'm looking. I know for a fact that Gabe and myself saw it. Martin, I'm not sure. He doesn't talk about it. Actually, we have not spoken in years, but as we turn, it's right there. And I remember thinking, how was this thing able to get from point A to point B running on these very odd shaped legs, these feet or paws, whatever, that made absolutely no sense and beat us there. So we turn, and that's it. The next day, I go to used bookstores and hunt for cryptid stuff. The creature that I saw really looked like it honestly was a throwback of some sort. Uh, it didn't look like it belonged on this planet, first and foremost. And the way it was shaped, just how it moved through the woods was impossible. So years later, we kind of all go our separate ways. I was 17 when this happened, so real life took over. And I ended up running into Gabe, the driver, about a year and a half ago. And I told him what I do. And I said, dude, you were in the car and had it started before anything, before these things came even and made their presence known. He said that when he was sitting there fiddling with the radio, he kind of looked out his rear view mirror and saw one of these things cross the street and go into the small patch of woods directly behind us. And then these things kept coming closer to us on the other side. To me, that's a tactical attack. Keep us isolated, keep us separated, keep us where we are a good spot. So we left and I got obsessed. And that's the encounter. I've been back there once with my cameras. I've driven and showed you guys what the cul-de-sac look like now. It really hasn't changed much. But yeah. With that, let's get into the next business. It's a video clip out of New Jersey. My friend Paul Patterson, who has studied the Jersey Devil for 30 something years, written books. He had never heard of Dogman until I reached out to him and wanted to discuss the Jersey Devil with him. Well, he then started to think that a lot of these cases of the Jersey Devil may be a misidentification for a dogman. The way they jump, the way they just go from tree to tree to tree, almost like it looks like it's flying. Well, he sends me this video and says, Jeff, pay attention to the video. And that's what I'm going to ask you guys too. And after you're done watching the video, I will go back and just go over it with you, because it's very realistic. And I really truly believe that this is a dogman. And so does Paul and a few other people that I've shown this to. So let's check it out. So with that video clip, that CCTV, you can see this creature walk through. Definitely not a bear. It's far too shaped differently than a bear would be. Definitely not a wolf, coyote, or dog. It's missing its tail if you really look. Its legs are shaped differently. The front legs are larger than the back. And the snout is huge. That was in New Jersey, taken around the Pine Barren region. A very interesting and terrifying video clip. Let's get into the next order of business. I want to discuss a little bit about the business going out in Colorado. Now, in that area, as many of you know, I've been looking into this cattle mutilations, attacks. Initially, they were supposed to be wolves, right? Well, there's only a small pack of wolves in Colorado. They're on the endangered list. It's not a wolf. It is. Then they talked about it being a bacteria. Then they said, well, maybe it's the guard dogs that protect the cattle and this and that. Well, we all know that that is not true at all. They really just want to keep everyone in the dark in Meeker. Well, as the article that I shared yesterday with you guys, the largest piece of information, or most damning piece of information for them, is that the wolves are not present there, that the bacteria or disease that they were thinking is not present, and that there had been hair and scat found. And they sent that out to the labs. None of it even resembles anything that is on file. There's been very deep howling where there is no wolves. Coyotes, they yip, they do howl, but they don't have a deep howl like what people are describing. And the attacks are savage. So I thought more people would talk about this one sentence, or one little paragraph. Investigators used trail cams and surveyed the area by flying overhead, Black said. Several people had reported hearing howling over the past few years, but those reports have not been confirmed. In one case, the howls likely came from coyotes, and lab analysis of hair and scat that might have belonged to a wolf came back inconclusive. What more proof do we need that that's not a wolf attacking the cattle out there? I know everyone's on board with me, but when you've got hair and scat and you can't identify it, well, then it moves into the cryptid world, right? That's how it works. All right, on to today's next, the third part of the upload. Hey Jeff, my name's Michelle. I'm 54 years old. My husband, Carl, is 46. We are both prior military, and my husband's been in combat on more than one occasion, so he suffers from severe PTSD. We both have our bachelors from UCA, and we've been happily married for over 21 years now, so we are not a couple of flakes. I grew up in the foothills of the Ozarks in a town called Shirley, which only has a population of 336. So I occupied myself in the woods growing up. In fact, when I wasn't in school, that's where I'd be found. My father was a rock mason and wood carver. Being his only child, I was raised a tomboy. He taught me about plants, animals, and how to hunt. So I'm very familiar with the woods here in Arkansas. My husband grew up in the shadow of the White Rock Mountain in a little community called Pleasant View here in Arkansas. His father served in special forces during Vietnam and taught him to be a survivalist from birth. So we are both at home in the forest, to say the least. Back in 2010, we were spending the night with a friend of ours by the name of Austin. He and my husband are very close. He lives in an old single-wide trailer. It sits up on a hill, and the way, one end is higher than the other. The tongue end is about a foot off the ground, the other is 4.5 feet off the ground. So the small sideways rectangular window in the bathroom is about 8 feet from the ground. Austin lives in a community that is way out in the sticks just outside of Plummerville, Arkansas, which we will not mention in order to respect his privacy. It was a pleasant summer evening, and we were all hanging around the house. Carl got up to use the restroom as the rest of us talked. He hadn't been in there long when I heard him calling my name. I noticed that his tone sounded strange and off. I rushed back to the bathroom to see what was going on. When I opened the door, the first thing I heard was this low rumbling growl. I looked at my husband, who was still sitting on the toilet with a shocked look on his face and his pants around his ankles, and I asked him, "What the hell is that?" He said, "I don't know." With it being dark out, I couldn't see anything out the long, skinny window, so I ran over and turned out the light and went back to the window. The street light was just out of my line of sight, but still illuminated the end of the yard. There was a small strip of mowed grass at the end of the trailer, and then it was short brush. All I could see was a large mass on all fours parting the tall grass and shrubbery. It looked to be about 4 feet across the shoulders and at least 6 feet long from shoulder to butt. I did not see a tail. I turned around and asked what had just happened. He told me that when he had come into the bathroom and sat down is when he heard this loud growl that made his insides vibrate, and tried to yell for me, but didn't want to be loud at the same time. He says it growled, a low rumbling growl that was similar to the one that I had heard just after this. I know that what we heard was no dog, no coyote, and no bear, none of which could ever growl like that. Only my husband heard the first and loudest and scariest growl/snarl of all, which scared him stiff. He said he felt all of the blood in his body go to his feet in fear. Worst of which was that he felt the first growl on the back of his neck literally through the open window, which only had a screen between him and this creature. It was one of those turn the handle and the blades of glass would open from the top to the bottom. The window was 8 feet from the ground. He was afraid to turn around and look out the window. He swore it sounded like a werewolf from the movie, and was canine for sure, and doesn't remember if it smelled. At this time, we had never researched or knew about Dogman or werewolves being real. My husband says that when he was sitting on the toilet and the beast growled on his neck, it was the scariest moment of his entire life. That's coming from someone who has seen the absolute worst and best of humanity. He said if he hadn't been on the toilet, he probably would have wet or soiled himself. Also, Austin had a Pitbull outside tied to the back corner of the trailer, almost right next to the window that was located behind my husband as he did his business on the toilet. We never heard a peep from her during all of this. This all happened late in the evening, and in the morning we found out why. She was lying in the yard with her chest and stomach ripped open, and contents were gone. We felt so bad for her. Carl thinks he interrupted this creature while it was eating her, and it voiced its displeasure at him. A few years later, in 2014, we were in Bush, Arkansas. We had 10 acres with a medium-sized creek that ran down the backside of our property, which empties into the White River at the southeast corner of our land. Beyond the creek, at the backside of the property, is Army Corps of Engineers land. Our property was roughly rectangular in shape. The road we lived down dead-ended and became our very long and curvy driveway. The house was in the middle of the acreage. You couldn't see the house from our steel gate at the entrance. If you were standing at the end of our driveway, the house and shed would be to your right, and the only house that was close to us was back down the drive to the left of our gate, about 150 feet, and had 2 8x8 metal sheds at the end of a single-wide mobile home. Their fence ran down the full length of our driveway. The first time something happened, I was taking Sugar Baby, our miniature poodle, out to use the potty at 2 a.m. I usually walked her on a leash because there are bobcat, coyote, and my husband even went face-to-face with a mountain lion/cougar one evening, even though Fish and Game denies they are here. It was clear out with a full moon, so I didn't need a flashlight. I was just across the driveway near the fence that marked the property boundary when I heard a rock hit the tree near me from across the fence. It went thwack against the tree and then thump, thump, thump on the ground. My heart began to beat faster as I struggled to see what was there. I couldn't see what had thrown the rock, but my first thought was Bigfoot. Sugar did not bark, but she was heading toward the house, tugging on the leash. So I took her advice and back toward the house, never taking my eyes off of that wood line. Then we went inside. I told my husband the next morning. He said that he believed that I had heard something out there, but he doubted it was Bigfoot. A few days later, a friend came by to do some fishing. We'll call him Wiley. He took his gear, water jug, and one of our large handheld spotlights. This was around 5 p.m. when he went down to the creek. Around 7 or 8 after dark, he came running in our front door with no stuff and only one shoe. He was breathing heavy, eyes wide and white as a ghost. When we asked Wiley what had happened, he said, "I don't know what's down there, but it's huge and really pissed off as hell." We asked where all his stuff was, and he added, "I left it down there, and I'm not going back for it." I ran plumb out of my shoe. I am never fishing here again. He told us that the spotlight had died on him, so he didn't get a good look at it. He stayed the night, and we told him we would go down and get his stuff the next day. The next morning, my husband and I went to the dock to get his things. His fishing gear was untouched, but his shoe was missing as well as his water jug. We found his shoe about 30 feet up the creek, and his bottle on the bank about 10 more feet up the stream. My husband didn't know what to think because Wiley was a bit of a lush, and he had the tendency to spin a good yarn now and then. But I believed him. I mean, the man ran out of his shoe and continued running. A few nights later, I was taking Sugar out at approximately 3 a.m. This time, instead of heading toward the river, I took her towards our gate at the opposite end of the driveway. I took a small handheld spotlight with a click switch on it. We had turned off the street light that stood between us and the house and the shed because we liked to look at the stars. As we walked past the sheds, which were on my right, I heard wham, as if something huge smacked the side of our shed. It was so startling, I jumped. I clicked off the light and dropped it at my feet. As fast as I could, I picked it up, turned it on, and scanned the shed area. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is what I saw. I figured it was hiding behind one of them This time, Sugar ran behind me barking. I was tired and hadn't forgot to put her on her leash. I had backed up toward the house, my heart thumping as we went inside. This went on for about a few weeks. He did this for about a month and a half, but each time it smacked the shed, I jumped less and less. I was startled, but I was curious at the same time. I really wanted to see this creature. After this, I brought my 12-gauge pump with me every night as precaution. After all, there are wild animals, and they can be unpredictable. The next morning, I told my husband what had happened, and he just looked at me puzzled and gave me the typical spouse who hasn't seen or heard anything in response. I don't know, babe. Maybe you're imagining things, even after what had happened at our friend's house, and to our friend. I wasn't angry with him for his response. He just hadn't seen or heard anything yet. I never pumped my gun any of those times this had happened because I never really felt threatened. It never growled at me or made any vocalizations. It felt more like it was laughing at me inside, thinking I watched this silly human jump. I never smelled anything, but I think that was because it crosses the river and possibly the creek to get there, depending on where it may have crossed. One evening, I was on the back deck of the barbecuing dinner. When, down where the creek and the river meet, I heard a loud grunting sound. It reminded me of a gorilla, but it had a different quality to it. There was much more bass. Like I stated before, our shed was to the right of the house on the west side. To the right of the shed, we had our canoes on a trailer. Behind those and the house were a set of trees all the way back to the creek. Most of the land was wooded with cleared trails throughout. This night it was around 11 p.m. when I took Sugar out. As Sugar and I passed our shed, I heard crashing like an elephant was coming through the woods, except it was on two legs. It was moving from right to left behind the canoes toward our house. This time I did pump my 12-gauge, and it froze. At first, I couldn't hear anything. Then I hear shuffle, 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 shuffle in the leaves where it stood. I got the impression that it didn't know what to do at this moment. I just didn't want our puppy being a snack for this thing. I shined the shotgun's flashlight into the woods, but I couldn't see anything. No, I shined nothing. So once again, I backed my way to the house and went in. I figured it must have been shot at before, and that's why it had froze. I never intended to shoot at it unless I had to. I told my husband upon entering the house what had happened. So the next morning he went out to look but found nothing. But our land was very rocky. He didn't find any broken tree limbs or anything. He tried to make as much noise as possible back in the trees, but he came nowhere close to making that much noise. I couldn't believe he didn't find anything. It really blew my mind. It was so loud it sounded like it was breaking everything in its path. He was beginning to think that I was going nuts, but then, about a week later, he was taking Sugar out with the shotgun in tow when he got a surprise. They got out the door and onto the middle of the driveway when the woods on the other side of the fence came something huge crashing through the trees. My husband does not scare easy. He was raised in the woods of Arkansas by a Vietnam Green Beret veteran turned Southern Baptist preacher, and he himself is a combat veteran. Both my husband and his father are tough old school guys. But he pumped that 12-gauge, and just like before it froze. He shined the flashlight into the trees high and low, but saw nothing. He said it sounded like a prehistoric mammoth crashing through the woods, coming towards him, but I couldn't see or find anything. Much like myself, he backed into the house, shotgun at the ready. A few days later, the neighbors at the gate end of our driveway told us that just after dark a few nights before, they had chased a large man off their property onto ours. I've always wanted to go back there and see if this creature is still there, but I can't get anyone to go with me. I wonder if anyone would be interested. We moved not long after that. We moved to a suburb of Rogers on Beaver Lake called Prairie Creek. After all of this, my husband bought us all a Glock 10mm. My son lives with us, so that's 3 Glocks. We now have a house rule that none of us go outside without their 10mm. He also bought 2 Rock Island VR-80 semi-automatic 12-gauge shotguns with magazines. He turned our Yukon XL Denali into an adventure vehicle and is planning to get 2 more guns, a Ruger precision rifle and 300 Win Mag and a Marlin lever-action 4570 Government before we move back out into the country again, which I hope is soon. Thank you for reading this, and please let me know what you think about our encounters. Feel free to use our names. These events are absolutely true. If you need to edit, feel free. P.S. Feel free to contact us by email or phone. Alright guys, the 4th part of this upload is going to be a video clip out of Rochester, New York, and it is very, very terrifying. Yes. Dude, I'm gonna pass out. Oh my God, dude. Yes. Dude, I'm gonna pass out. Oh my God, dude. Now, here is the story behind that video clip. I actually reached out to the people. They're from Rochester, New York. I'm hoping to hear from them to have them on the show. Something's been keeping its eye on my boyfriend when he goes out at night. The video, he is catching the noise it makes. I've tried sharing it before, but have yet to have someone send proof of any animal making this noise. The closest I've come to finding something that sounds anything like it is a pterodactyl video, so I'm hoping someone may be able to help. This was recorded in Rochester. These woods are not huge, sprawling acres of unexplored area. I can walk from one end to the other in a few hours. It sits behind a set of 4 neighborhoods, as well as an elementary school. They continuously travel during the day. We don't regularly have any big cats, boars, wolves, or bear in the area. It's very rare, and if one were seen, it would be common knowledge among the residents being so close to a school. With that being said, across the street from where it is seen starts acres and acres of farmland, woods, and houses miles apart. It only comes around when my boyfriend is present. He hears constant strange noises, screams, screeches, solo howls by what sounds like packs of wolves on full moons, and the feeling of absolute dread on a nightly basis. I felt the dread, but have never had anything strange happen to me unless he is with me. He has always had unclaimed spiritual senses, mainly through dreams. I don't know if that would have anything to do with this attachment. Anyway, this particular being has only been heard between 1 and 3 a.m., in general, the same area. You can't really tell in the video, but it is very loud. When we walk our dog, we can hear it running through the woods paralleling us. It sounds very large and very fast, sometimes bipedal. Our dog also does not like this area. She tries to turn around and go home, or bites her leash to try and get away. In the video, you can hear it in the water splashing around, and it does not sound small. To my boyfriend, it sounded like something being dragged through the water. Also, listen closely when he says that's what made the noise. You can hear it make a deep, guttural growl, and it's always moving towards us, not away. The growl, and it not fleeing, really solidifies to me that it is not a deer, fox, or any mammal I am familiar with that splits at the sight of a human. Along with this video, there is a clip of rocks being thrown at my boyfriend on the same bridge around the same time, as well as a set of trail cam photos of a strange shaped animal stalking a very large coyote.
Yes. Dude, I'm gonna pass out.
Alright guys, kind of the end of the night, early morning bonus upload. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Your support is what makes this channel so special and what continues its growth. Guys, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they're out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop pushing back, never stop asking questions, and God bless you all.